Hey everybody, my name is Ellesmere, and I'm here to talk about Holy Paladin in Season 3, The War Within. This PTR cycle was a little crazy. We started off very weak, but got a lot of buffs over the last few weeks. Unfortunately, that means that there was not much testing at all done for Raid, but Mplus was thoroughly tested by yours truly, and I have cooked up a build called the Solar Infusions build that I think you guys are going to love. One of the biggest changes about this patch is that Infusion of Light was altered to now make Flash of Light instant cast. And by doing that, it's opened up a whole new avenue of gameplay. This is something that a lot of people have been asking for a while because it allows Hpal to kind of continue down its instant cast melee fast-paced build that has defined it over the last couple expansions. And I would argue that modern Hpal is very much meant to be played as this melee instant cast healer. So it's really nice to see Blizzard leading into that more and giving us a new tool to play with. So this is the build. This is for Mplus. I have a raid version as well that I will go over in a bit. But first, I just want to talk about this. The first thing is the class tree was unchanged. Unfortunately, there is still a ton of useless talents here. Just going to avoid all of them just like last season. So I'm not really going to discuss the class tree at all. I've talked about that plenty. They changed Infusion of Light to no longer proc from Holy Shock crits, but instead proc based on a flat percentage anytime that you cast Holy Shock. So anytime that you press Holy Shock, there is a 10% chance that you gain Infusion of Light. The reason that it was significant that they changed Second Sunrise from being a 30% chance to cast at higher effectiveness to instead a 100% chance to cast at lower effectiveness. That means that anytime that we cast Holy Shock as Herald of the Sun, effectively we're casting 2 Holy Shocks. And that doubles the chance at an Infusion because Infusion can proc from the Second Sunrise Holy Shock. This is really important because early in the PTR cycle, the feedback was given that basically at a 10% chance, Infusion is too unreliable to play around, and it felt really bad as Herald because as Lightsmith, you got constant infusions due to laying down arms. So on the one side of things with Lightsmith, we had just an absurd amount of infusions, and with Herald, we had basically none. This allows Herald to catch up, and then on top of that, we got some nice buffs to just our general throughput, to our spenders, to Holy Shock, to our passive healing with Dawn Lights, and one of the things that they also did was they decreased the value of the radiating portion of Dawn Light. Basically, they made it so that instead of 8% of Dawn Light's damage and healing radiating, only 5% does, but in exchange, they buffed Dawn Light itself. That makes it better for M+, and that makes it better for spread out fights, which is one of the biggest issues that we had in Raid. With this infusion change also means that a lot of things that previously were not very good suddenly are good. So things like Moment of Compassion, Tower of Radiance, Inflorescence of the Sunwell, talents that we had previously kind of thrown away because they had no real place to fit in the builds that were meta. Fortunately, with all these changes, now they have a fantastic place and they feel very good to press. There are a few things to keep in mind. With this build, you never want to press Flash of Light unless you have an infusion proc. So you got to have a great way of tracking infusions. The second thing is you never press Holy Light. This is a build that never presses Holy Light. It also almost never presses Hammer of Wrath. So those two things are pretty much just out. Very occasionally I'll press Hammer of Wrath as like a filler, but it's maybe 3 or 4 times in a 30-minute period. So definitely not something that you should ever worry about pressing except as sort of a min-max thing. When it comes to when you want to press Flash of Light versus other buttons, the big thing to remember is that because Moment of Compassion only buffs Flash of Light, when it's on a target affected with your beacon, that is part of why we're running Virtue, but also because they changed the way beacons work to now be higher in terms of how much they transfer, but transfer less things. So instead of transferring all healing, it only transfers direct healing. So things like Flash of Light, Holy Prism, Light of Dawn, Word of Glory, Eternal Flame, any direct healing spell. The great thing about Moment of Compassion and Virtue synergy is that any time that you have Virtue active in keys and you press Flash of Light, it is this massive group-wide heal. and it also generates holy power. So you can just build up some holy power, press virtue, and then immediately spend into an infused flash of light to build another holy power, and then spend again, and then another. It's just insane, the power that you have. And on top of that, we have a new talent called Pillars of Light, which originally wasn't very good. Still isn't good if you're running Faith. However, if you're running Virtue, they did buff it a lot. And at its current value, it heals for almost 500,000 on every single player. Already without any modifiers whatsoever, we're looking at close to 2.5 million just from the press of virtue itself, which allows you to get a little bit more burst healing within the global of virtue, because a lot of times people are frustrated. Oh, why isn't virtue off the GCD? I want my healing as soon as I press it. It's not reactive enough. This allows it to be a little bit more reactive, buy you a, that global in order to start spending your other healing abilities inside that virtue window. So having that initial heal feels great, and it is strong. It does generally around 5% of my healing in very high healing situations. Two things to note with this build: we are not running Light of the Martyr, simply because we have way more spot healing than we have had previously via Moment of Compassion, Flash of Lights with Infusion, and Inflow. It's just so much spot healing that we constantly have access to. You really don't need Light of the Martyr. And the thing is, spending 2 talents on Light of the Martyr is essentially a waste unless you actually need it for spot healing, because effectively it's a net 0 gain. You're not actually gaining any HPS by talenting into Light of the Martyr because of the healing absorb that it places on you for the same amount that you actually gain. So no Light of the Martyr in this build because of the newfound increased spot healing power of the new Infusions and Flash of Lights. Additionally, the other thing you're going to see missing from this build is Crusader's Might. Once again, this is because Flash of Light kind of takes Crusader Strike's spot. Normally, Crusader Strike was your go-to holy power builder outside of Holy Shock, but now, when you don't have Holy Shock, you're instead looking to use Flash of Light with Infusion as your other core builder. Now, that doesn't mean we're never going to press Crusader Strike. We're definitely still going to press it, but it's definitely deprioritized a fair amount compared to where it was previously, which made it lose a lot of value. Like, it made Crusader's Might lose a lot of value because you're just not pressing it as much, and you don't need the CDR as much as you previously did when we didn't have these other spells to rely on. I know it seems like a build without Crusader's Might and without Light of the Martyr, it seems foreign, but I promise you guys are going to get used to it, and it's going to feel fantastic. This build feels better than any iteration of Hpal in a very long time. As for mana consumption, this build doesn't really use mana. I mean, it does, and you will drop mana throughout like a 30-minute dungeon, but in all my testing, I never needed to drink once. It's extremely mana efficient due to Truth Prevails, Reclamation, Inflorescence, Divine Revelations, Blessing of Summer, which obviously has Blessing of Winter. All these things combined just make this an extremely mana efficient build. The general healing spell priority of this build is 1, Virtue if people are injured. If you've got, multiple people injured, just press Virtue on cooldown. If only one person is injured, don't worry about it. But definitely virtuing as much as you can to assist with the AoE healing is the core of this build. 2, Holy Prism. Holy Prism is the main CD of this build because of all the interactions with Dawnlight, so you want to be pressing Holy Prism as much as you can. 3 is Infusion flashing during Virtue. Now, I specified during Virtue because if you're Flash of Lighting with Infusion outside of Virtue, then it's lower down in the totem pole. But one of the highest, most efficient buttons that you can press is Infusion Flash of Light during Virtue. Now, obviously, this assumes you won't overcap Holy Power. Do not forget that Flash of Light generates Holy Power. So if you're at 5 Holy Power, don't press it. Use a spender and then press it. Next would be, obviously, our spender, Eternal Flame. After that, Holy Shock, our bread and butter. And then after that, at number 6, we would put Infusion Flash of Light, except outside of Virtue this time. And then lastly, we have our 2 builders, Judgment, and then Crusader Strike. That's kind of the general healing spell priority. As for damage spell priority, you've got, keeping Consecrate down, and then Judgment, because it drops more Consecrates. And then Holy Prism, spending on Shield of the Righteous, Holy Shock, and then Crusader Strike last. I don't even include Hammer of Wrath because, again, you should basically never press it. I hope that gives you guys a good grasp of how this build plays. I will definitely be uploading some dungeons of me playing this build so that you guys can see it in action. And additionally, once the raid comes out, I will have VODs of raid kills as well with the raid version of this build. And speaking of that, let's go ahead and pop over to the raid version of this build just so you guys can see. You can already see class talents don't really matter. Nothing really changes. The only thing I do change from Mplus to raid is Light of the Martyr. I picked this up in place of Tyrion's Devotion because you generally don't get more than one, maybe 2 lay on hands per boss fight anyways. It brings more value in a dungeon than it does in raid because of that. And the other thing I removed is obviously Shining Righteousness because you should not press Shield of the Righteous in raid. In terms of playstyle, the build plays almost identical to Mplus. The big difference being that you don't press Shield of the Righteous or Consecrate, and that you actually use Light of Dawn instead of Eternal Flame. Now, this seems kind of contradictory because you're like, well, we have Eternal Flame, which is supposed to be this way better version of Word of Glory. Why wouldn't we be spending on that, since that's like the core of Herald of the Sun? You're not entirely wrong. However, because of the changes to Second Sunrise and Sunseer, it has caused Light of Dawn to be better than Eternal Flame in most cases, assuming that Light of Dawn is healing at least 4 targets. So, basically the rule is the same as it's always been. Long story short, if there's AoE damage, press your AoE heal, Light of Dawn. If there's single target damage that needs to be healed and only 1 or 2 people are injured, press your Eternal Flame. And that's it. It's really that simple. I want to take a quick moment to show you guys the new Quickview guide version of Wings is Up. Obviously, the full written guide is still here, every single part that you're interested in for all my friends who want to be super in-depth. But for those of you with shorter attention spans, like myself, this is the Quickview version of the guide. The Mplus and Raid guides are both this long. This is it. This is the whole guide. What this is going to do is this is just going to show you the core healing spells, the rotation filler spells, stat prio, trinkets, embellishments, gameplay changes from tier set, and cooldown usage, healing spell priority, and damage spell priority. I hope this has been helpful for you guys. If you guys have any questions about the new build, please hit me up in the comments. I will be uploading more videos very soon as the season starts. I am raiding with Nascent, so I'll be doing plenty of progression raiding, and I will make sure to get some Mplus VODs up quickly so that you guys can see how this build plays out in action. Thank you guys very much for watching, and I hope you guys have fun in Season 3.